Okay, so in the first week of our MOOC, we talked to our participants about using a range of multimedia tools which can be used to enhance their learning materials and their practice. And I'd be really interested in what you do in your practice, what tools and techniques you might use. So for example, images. Steve, do you use images in your teaching?
Yeah, I'm lucky because my subject, geology, is very practical, and I use lots of images to demonstrate maps or photographs to look at the bigger picture of geology, but also we do a lot of work down microscopes, and I can take photographs and put those into my teaching and get students to explain what's going on. So images are very prolific in our course material.
And you're taking your own images, which you can then use?
Yeah, I think because ours are so specialised, we've got expertise in the equipment we need to use, and actually as a lecturer you need a specific viewpoint, and it's only you that can decide that because you know the interpretation. So yeah, we've become quite expert in these techniques, but it's fairly simple once you've got the material in front of you, you've structured it. The cameras, etc., are standard in a sense, so it doesn't take too much once you've become cognizant with how you want to present it.
Really important because it's a very visual subject that you teach.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Eileen, what's your experience of using images for your teaching?
Well, I have taught a lot online, and you know the online environments are often very boring to look at, and I've tried to use a lot of images to sort of make them more engaging. But one of the things that I found quite quickly is that searching for images that you could use in terms of copyright was an issue. So I started making my own using screenshots, just making screenshots, and sometimes just of abstract shapes or like pictures of landscape that I'd taken, and adding some words over the top just as an introduction, or but it just sort of was a lot easier. I've also used a tool called Haiku Deck, which helps you create presentations and anything really, but it helps you find copyright free images or Creative Commons actually licensed images. And I found that really useful because you can spend so much time, trying to find the right images.
Yes, I've done much the same because I don't have a terribly visual topic. It's about using technology in teaching and learning. And so it's dynamic, but it's not, something you take a photo of very often. So I use them in a similar way to just brighten up the pages in Moodle with a good image, and also found problems with finding good licensed images, so took my own. Yeah. Sometimes they were pictures of, things that you could find online, but they were good images. Yeah. It does help to just sort of give a sense of what this week is all about. Yeah.
One way that one method of sort of disseminating photos and circulating them is via Twitter. I was wondering if you use Twitter in your practice at all. Steve, do you use Twitter much?
I've started, so last academic year, I haven't taught this term yet, but last academic year I was using Twitter and Twitter feeds, but I use a lot of video. So for instance, when we're looking down a microscope, you can see wonderful colours and shapes of the minerals, and it's very important for the students to be able to identify the individual minerals. And when I'm teaching, I can look down the microscope and take photographs or videos. And often for my distance learners, I put some of those up straight away on Twitter. And I've had good feedback and I've enjoyed doing it. I haven't really incorporated it in big time into my teaching yet, but it's there, and I'm going to continue after Christmas. So.
It's the sort of thing I've used in workshops when you have several groups working together on something, and you want them all to feed back. And if you go around every single group, it can take forever. And everybody wants to say their own thing. They don't necessarily want to listen to everybody else's so much. But if you use Twitter, and you've got a hashtag, and each table is asked to sort of put up a tweet about the thing they discussed or the issue they came up with, and you can just sort of scroll through and you can see everybody sees their stuff as represented, they can comment on others. So it's a much more efficient way of getting through that kind of process. We used it for that.
Eileen, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, well, mostly I've taught people, I suppose, how to embed Twitter feeds and use Twitter generally in terms of like developing kind of digital capabilities through using Twitter. But there was a really good idea that we used in one of our courses, which was to have the idea of a tweet for a week, and it was a Moodle course, so we could kind of make the instructions for each day appear automatically. So each day there'd be something new for people to tweet about. And it has struck me that that was a very good idea, that you could use it in all sorts of different situations. And it's a way of kind of making the online environment very dynamic without you actually having to be there all the time. And if you have embedded a Twitter feed, then people can see, you know, what other people are tweeting about. So, and I think that some of my colleagues are using it again, actually in another course for postgraduates. So, you know, to teach them about how to use social media for sharing their research.
We're using a Twitter hashtag for this very MOOC, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the types of feedback and information that we get from that. So, thank you all. So next on the agenda is to talk about video and screencasts. Diana, have you used video or have you taken screencasts for your students?
Yes, both of those, because as I said, teaching and learning is very dynamic. So we're talking about how to use technology in the classroom or in a field trip or something like that. If you've got something really interesting to point the camera at, so you take the video crew with the students. You have to have a very good video crew for that, because that is real life and it's ungovernable. So they've got to be alert and responsive, and we've been very lucky actually in getting very good people to do that. And then screencasts are really useful when you've got something like a tool and you're trying to show people how to use it, or it might be a complicated diagram and you want to talk people through it. You can even, well, you can do it with screencasts. You can also record audio over PowerPoint slides. If you've got PowerPoint slides which you're using in a lecture, and you can take more time to go over it. And they don't look like fantastically professional videos maybe, but from the student's point of view, they're great because you're just getting that sort of exactly what you need, that walkthrough. So what was that all about? How do you do that? It's ideal for that.
Yeah. It's actually a fantastic resource, isn't it? And it's something we all have in common, I think, because we see these moving images and they are meaningful. But like Diana, I use it in terms of instructional videos. So for my first year students, when they come into the college, or before they come into the college as a pre-entrance, I give them instructions how to look at Moodle, how to download all our learning materials, how to use Panopto. And actually that saves me a lot of work in the long run because I'm not inundated with email messages. So those type of pre-instructional videos are great, but also, as Diana said, screencasts, absolutely invaluable and relatively easy to do. And you do not play around with them afterwards. As said, they're sort of raw and dirty, because if you start editing videos, you're in a mire. It takes forever. So yeah, and students really do love it, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. There's no point in editing because it's not going to add as much as the time takes to achieve it. And I mean, I've used a lot of video in teaching, but one of the most effective things that I've done with video, I think, is to give feedback to students using screencasts, because that combination of being able to see, you know, if you pull up somebody's assignment on your screen and you can highlight bits of it you want to talk about, and you can point directly to what you're saying, so it makes sense of what you're feeding back to them in a way in which, you know, sort of comments at the end of an essay don't tend to. And it doesn't really take that much longer than giving written feedback. And the students just value it so much more because they you know, they can hear that you're sincere when you're talking to them. And, you know, I've shared that kind of approach with people. And one of my colleagues said, you know, when she gave feedback using video like that, that was for the first time people thanked her for, you know, the feedback that you don't usually get. And it does, and I've used that with face-to-face students as well as online students, and it's always effective.
You know, the other thing that's important about that is tone of voice.
Yeah.
Because if you're giving critical feedback. You know, you're saying that's not quite right. In black and white, it's so different from saying, well, you know, that's not quite right. Maybe think about it, and you can say a bit more. You can put the twiddly bits into the conversation. You know,
I think it's a great idea. I've given audio feedback in the past because I thought that's quick and very easy to send off on it via an email, but actually using video would be great, and I might actually try that now. This will be your fault, but it was funny with just the audio. The students said, yeah, it's okay, but I'd prefer something more. So I think either video or I write on the scripts, and they love that. They seem very comfortable with that, but actually using video would get away from that, and it's a bit more modern.
And like Eileen says, it shouldn't really take much longer. In fact, it might be more efficient to talk it through instead of writing it all out.
And that's a real case where, you know, editing is a no-no, because if you're really trying to be efficient, you can't be editing stuff. And they want to hear you talking, so it doesn't matter if you make mistakes, and just sort of makes you more real.
You're human. Steve, you mentioned using audio initially for providing feedback. Do any of you others, do you use audio at all, podcasts, or do you create audio
files? Many years ago, when that was sort of an easier way to do things, but now that we have so many other ways to do it, the sorts of things we've been talking about, I don't use just audio now. Actually, sometimes it's all right, because you can listen to something while you're doing other things, like travelling to work or something, or in the car. So it's not a bad medium to use, it's just that I've kind of left it behind.
I still embed it within my PDF files, so it's still within that, and it will be talking about rocks or something like that, and students do then look at the rock and take in what you're saying, so it does work, it's very effective, but there are other media.
Different media. That's audio visual.
Yeah.
And that's not just the audio.
That's right.
It's not just
so
the
it's
podcast.
A combination,
You can't look at that while you're driving. It won't do.
No.
You've got to think of it like a radio program or something like that.
That's right.
Eileen, any use of audio in your practice?
Not so much for the reasons that people are saying, but I mean, increasingly I've thought, well, you know, I've started listening to more podcasts myself, you know, sort of travelling to work, and I mean, the advantage is that, you know, if you haven't got Wi-Fi or internet access, like a sound file is so much easier to keep on your devices, and so, you know, certainly some of the MOOCs that I've studied, you know, I've kind of wished that they had podcasts actually, because it would have been easier to sort of follow them. So maybe we should revisit it, yeah.